You throw a Molotov cocktail and it hits the windshield of a car, that car is up in flames.
Well, duh. They don't want to be blown off the face of the world with a nuclear Iran.
If you don't stop these incidents in their tracks, then it encourages and incentivizes more Arabs to go and attack you.
This is the Israel Guys.
Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of fake news, you should connect to the true and authentic stories of Israel. Guys, go ahead and hit subscribe, hit all those notification bells, and get the conversation going in the comments below. If you want to subscribe on Rumble, in case we one day get censored off of YouTube, you should do that. Link in the description below. And also, check out the Israel Guys Daily, a 15-minute podcast that comes out Monday through Friday, right when you wake up in the United States, and covers everything you need to know from Israel from that day, with a special focus on the biblical heartland. You don't want to miss it. Just go to your favorite podcast platform, look for the Israel Guys every single day, Monday through Friday, 15 minutes straight out of Israel. Start your day off right. Josh, I have a bold prediction. I predict that international news headlines will read something like this in the next few days. Israel's military shoots and kills 13-year-old boy in the West Bank. I also predict that the international news headlines will be talking about settler violence again. And, of course, you guys know that if you just, I should say, one very, very leftist international news network already published a headline like that, but you can be my witness. I came to you and I said, I predict this before I even knew about that. And then you found it and sent it to me afterwards. Al Jazeera, they've already said it, but there's going to be more in the next couple of days.
And guys, you don't have to think he's some sort of prophet or rocket scientist to come up with this kind of information. It's actually pretty easy. And Luke, you already are turning to be correct in this.
Right. Okay, so real story. You guys ready for it?
Ready.
The real story is that IDF fighters from the Maglan Reconnaissance Unit on Tuesday evening this week eliminated a 13-year-old. This is why it's so, this is sad, like very sad, Palestinian Arab terrorist who threw firebombs at Israeli vehicles on Highway 60 in Judea, in the Gush Etzion area. More to the story. The fighters operated near the Arab village of Al-Qadir, and they identified 3 different suspects who arrived at a spot from which firebombs were thrown at Israeli vehicles multiple times in recent weeks. That's one of the keys to this, okay? 2 keys. 1, firebombs are bombs, okay? Molotov cocktails are not just little bottles with, gas in them that they're just playing around with. Yeah. These are bombs. I saw a video today. Maybe we can add the B-roll in so you can get an idea of you throw a Molotov cocktail and it hits the windshield of a car, that car is up in flames. And if it happens just right, everybody in the car dies, okay? These are bombs. Fire bombs, Molotov cocktails are explosives, okay? These guys, doesn't matter if they're 13, 14, 16, 25, okay? They are trying to kill people that are driving down the highway. That's number 1. Number 2 key thing is that this had happened a lot of times by the same terrorists. So when the IDF opened fire and then when they started throwing firebombs again, they knew these guys have been doing this over and over and over again, and if we don't put a stop to this right now, it's going to keep happening and Jewish lives will be lost.
Luke, can I just go ahead and say what you predicted the headlines, but there's also something pretty bad in the background is that the world is going to be convinced after these headlines that Israel, just out of brutality, goes in and kills a 13-year-old for just no reason. They're just want to shoot 13-year-olds. Now, that is ridiculous and so far from the truth that you should not even be able to get away with it. These headlines will be posting this. They already are. Al Jazeera just posted it already, their version of the story. Well, I want you guys to get it in your head what's actually going on. You have a 13-year-old that has a bomb in his hand, and he literally takes it and throws it in an Israeli car. And the soldiers are defending. They're actually there to defend the highway to make sure that no damage is done to anybody. It doesn't matter if it was an Arab vehicle or a Jewish vehicle on the road. Their job is to protect the highway and to make sure that everything stays safe. So if somebody runs up with a bomb and throws it at a car, okay, if you're the person there on duty, you've got to take care of the situation. That's exactly what the IDF did.
I want to say one other thing, and that is that the Palestinian Authority and the PLO and Hamas and Fatah are using 13 and 14-year-olds to their advantage. They know that these guys will be killed if they attack Israel enough times, and they don't care. In fact, they want it to happen. So they're incentivizing and brainwashing 13-year-olds to go and attack Jews and attack Israelis so that the IDF will then respond and shoot them, because then they know that they're going to win in the international media. Because no matter how you spin it, the IDF killing a 13-year-old Palestinian boy is just not ever going to look good for Israel, right? But you guys know the real story. You have to know this is what's happening. And unfortunately, the Palestinian Authority and the Arab leaders are the ones sending their young teenage boys to their deaths intentionally so that they can then gain sympathy from international media headlines.
Luke, you want to know what's worse than that is? Just now, everybody's talking about Sheikh Jarrah and what's happening there, the Shimona Tzaddik Jewish neighborhood. They're even lower than that. They're taking disabled people and putting them in the fight to make, and then they put them there, and then the Israeli police have to come and move them because they intentionally are putting disabled people in areas that they know the Israeli police will have to come move them out of this area. And then what do you think the messaging is? Brutal Israeli occupation officers. Guys, it's a whole leftist regime that its whole focus is to demonize Israel. And I'm telling you what, they've got their cameras poked right in the nice little direction to capture just that. And guess what? They set the stage for it. They did it. They indoctrinated the 13-year-old to go throw a bomb at an Israeli car driving down the highway. They take the disabled person and literally walk him over and set him down right in an area. Of course, no disabled person would do that in their own just doings. Guys, the whole script is there. They're writing it and they're videoing it, and then they're producing it to the world with one goal, and that's to demonize the nation of Israel.
Josh, Shlomo Neiman, the chairman of the Gush Etzion Regional Council, said in response to this incident, quote, "The IDF soldiers did well to kill the Arab who tried to burn Jews alive. Yeah. If this trend continues, I'm sure we will see fewer firebombs in Gush Etzion in particular and in Judea and Samaria in general. Well done. There is a reward for your hard work." Basically, he's saying, if you don't stop these incidents in their tracks, then it encourages and incentivizes more Arabs to go and attack Jews, and eventually there will be Jews killed. And there has been multiple times, and this has to be stopped right now so that they will not attempt such attacks in the future.
Luke, misleading at its finest. Al Jazeera's headline already was, Israeli forces kill Palestinian boy in West Bank. Did
you
that
guys
describe it?
Comment below, because this week there will be more headlines. Comment below the headlines that you see and post the links there in international news networks. And I can guarantee you they will say something very similar to what Josh just read from Al Jazeera.
Guys, there's lots going on in Iran right now. Actually, a lot going on in America and a lot going on in Vienna. There's talks
going on.
Ukraine
and Russia.
Yeah, okay. There's a lot happening in the whole big wide world.
Which is why you guys should listen to the Israel Guys daily on podcast platforms, because you're going to catch it all.
Guys, what we're going to narrow it down to how it affects Israel, as we always do. What's going on in the world and how is it affecting Israel? Well, I'm telling you what, these talks that are happening, the American-led talks, negotiating with Iran. Okay, first off, we don't negotiate with Iran. That's just period. We don't do that.
We shouldn't.
The Iranian.
Unfortunately, we are.
Yeah, and unfortunately, America
for sure.
Totally is. The Iranian military. What do they call those guys? We'll get to it in a minute. I'll get that. I'm jumping ahead because this is so ridiculous. But they're on the terror list for America. But yet, one of the negotiating facts is that they want to take them off the terror list. Well, guess what? America's weakness right now is actually negotiating with someone that's on our terror list. Okay, we'll get on with it. But right now, what's going on in Iran right now, and what's going on in Vienna with these talks? They're actually lowering themselves down. You know, Trump came in and did something really amazing, and he did the tough thing. He put tough negotiations, or tough restrictions and policies in place, sanctions in place that held Iran back from their nuclear capabilities. He did a great job at that, and then Biden comes in and he has that strong. He says we're going to go longer and stronger. That's what Biden said. And then what happens? The hard line to keep Iran from a nuke actually is falling apart. And now he's going to did you guys know this? This is I don't think everybody realizes this, but Obama, when he did the JCPOA, what do we call that? The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in 2015, that was really just the whole thing. You want to boil it down, it was just to keep Iran from going nuclear within 10 to 15 years. That was the goal. You understand?
Well, because it actually allowed for them to go nuclear, like right after the plan expired.
Yeah, exactly. So it was just it
wasn't
just to
stopping
hold the
them,
world. It wasn't stopping
words,
them in no form or fashion of the way. It was only inhibiting them from going nuclear in 10 to 15 years. Okay, so we got to get that straight. Now, that longer and stronger that Biden mentioned in his attempts at getting his longer and stronger policies, well, actually, it's boiled down to the fact because thank God the Congress is not really going to allow any negotiations on this right now. It's too split and divided. And if they did, it would be a long, drawn-out effort. He can actually zip right back into the 2015 agreement, which actually doesn't do anything except, once again, pave a way to Iran to have a nuclear bomb.
Well, and the 2015 agreement, too, allowed for them to enrich uranium at a very low percentage. So if they went back to that, then technically it would call for them to basically scale back their uranium enrichment. But unfortunately, I can almost guarantee you it wouldn't happen because they're not going to allow the UN inspectors to come in. Yeah. They're obviously not going to tell you how much uranium they're actually enriching. So wouldn't it work at the end of the day anyways?
Correct. Guys, we're within, they're saying it could be days away from the U.S. entering back into the same old agreement, basically. There's going to be a little changes here and there. Basically, the same old agreement, the 2015 deal that Obama had, America's about to enter into that again, very likely within the next few days. As early as the next few days. Could be a little bit longer.
So basically, there's like two countries that people look to when it comes to stopping Iran. Number one, the U.S., right?
Right.
But now that the U.S. is kind of like people don't know what the U.S. is going to do now, and they're not really trusting them to stop Iran anymore. Second country people look to is Israel. What is Israel saying? Israel's Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said, quote, "The emerging deal, as it seems, is highly likely to create a more violent, more volatile Middle East." He also stated that, quote, "Israel is not bound by the deal and is prepared to attack Iran if needed."
Yeah.
I will say that we will never know when or exactly how, but if Israel needs to attack Iran, they will. You can rest assured that will happen, right?
The most of the world doesn't even realize, actually the world does not know. There's no official documenting on what Israel's capabilities are. I think that's amazing.
Because they're good guys,
Yeah, they're good, and nobody's really concerned that they're going to blow the world up.
There's also no official documentation that says Israel has taken out certain scientists and people and generals in Iran, but there's a pretty good feeling that they've had something to do with all that. So Israel's already been responsible for slowing down Iran's nuclear program. Former Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu said, quote, "The most important thing to say is with a deal or without a deal, Israel must do what it needs to do to defend itself against this extraordinary threat to its existence and its future."
Okay, so what we got to boil down now is so what is Israel concerned about? And some of you guys are going, well, duh, they don't want to be blown off the face of the world with a nuclear Iran. Well, that's okay. So, but what are the nitty gritty details of why? Okay, so if the U.S. goes back to the 2015, basically, agreements, and they lose that maximum pressure that Trump had put on, Trump had a maximum pressure policy, right? So they're going to drop that, and then they're going to go back to the 2015 deal. What's the problem? Luke, you mentioned the stockpiles of uranium that are not in accordance with the 2015 deal. What are they going to do with that? Whatever, probably. I mean, we're just guessing now what's going to happen. Here's the big deal. There's $7 billion locked up in assets. They're frozen. That if they go back to the 2015 deal, it releases all of that, okay? So there's sanctions. You lift these sanctions, boom, and boom's a good word when we talk to Iran, right? They get
it sounds like a bad word to me.
$7 billion and more. I mean, the $7 billion is just wrapped up in their oil, which is, I'm assuming, the most part of what they've got wrapped up and frozen right now. Now, this is released. Where do you think that goes? Well, it goes right into the regime. It goes right into this regime that, one, wants to create a nuclear bomb To do what? To destroy Israel. They're going to try to say that that's not the real reason. But of course that's the main reason. That's their whole founding and their whole military. That's what they do. It's embedded in their essence and their Muslim faith is to destroy Israel. Israel is what's keeping them away from God and experiencing their
Josh,
full
it's not
faith.
just a nuclear bomb because Iran also has proxies all over the Middle East.
Exactly right.
And you're talking about proxies like Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza.
I'm talking about a 13-year-old boy who throws a bomb at a car.
Yes, because you're talking about Hezbollah in Judea and Samaria, right? Or ISIS in Judea and Samaria. And I know that sounds crazy, but obviously they're not going to be like open. But yes, Iran's proxies are in Judea and Samaria and in Gaza and in Lebanon, all around Israel. And Iran is secretly helping to fund them and equip them and incite them to attack Israel.
And they're sending professionals in to train them undercover. They're going in. There's countless stories where they bring in guys to teach them how to make rockets in Gaza. Okay, that's all like part of that's what's called a proxy war. Come on, for goodness sakes. This is what's happening, and America's going to unthaw, right, all this $7 billion, more than $7 billion. There's 7 is just the oil, like I said. They're going to release these billions of dollars into Iran to attack. I mean, you don't have to go that far to look at what Iran thinks about America either, for goodness sakes. Israel's just like that's just the little, they hate America. They just sent vaccines back to America, back to Poland, I think it was, because they were made in America. I mean, they're not even going to take things. Yeah. They hate Americans. And Americans are diplomatically trying to resolve the issues. Guys, I'm telling you, this is ridiculous. Here's the deal. The U.S. they're asking, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps. This is who they are. They're on the U.S. Terrorism watch list. Yeah, those are the guys we're negotiating with on how we want to help them get nuclear power. Am I going insane, or are you? That's ridiculous. We're going to help people that are on our terror watch list have nuclear power as early as 2025. Does that sound reasonable? Of course not. It's absolutely insanity that we would promote such a thing and allow such a thing to happen.
Josh,
but that's exactly what's going on right now.
Yoel Guzanski, an expert on Iran at Israel's Institute for National Security Studies, said, quote, Iran is going to be more able and confident to do things it has already been doing with more resources and confidence, perhaps immunity, because it signed a very important agreement. Josh, of course, we all want to know, what does Iran have to say about themselves for this?
Well,
because if they're violent and they're terrorists, they're obviously going to tell us. Well, the truth is they will tell us, but not in a way that people will choose to listen to and believe.
Look, they're saying their nuclear activities are peaceful.
Of course they are.
Of course. And we've got Twitter.
Why else would a violent dictatorship, Sharia law controlled country be building nuclear missiles?
Well, okay, I just want the world to understand this. There's the Ayatollah Khomeini. He's allowed on Twitter. And he says lots of sweet things on Twitter.
Somebody else is not allowed on Twitter, though.
Somebody else is not allowed on Twitter, and you know who I'm talking about.
Don't read into that, by the way.
It's very weird.
We're not political at all.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, President Trump is not allowed. But what? Okay. And now we're going to see what he said on Twitter and see if this even compares to the insensitivity of former President Donald Trump.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is the Ayatollah Khomeini. On Twitter, this is 2015, right, as the former negotiations are going on. He says, after negotiations, in Zionist regime, obviously his English is not fully there, but he's trying at it. They said they had no more concern about Iran for next 25 years. I'd say, firstly, you will not see next 25 years. Is that a good way to? Yeah. This is Twitter. He's on Twitter saying, Zionist, you're not going to see the next 25 years. What? Firstly, you will not see next 25 years. God willing, there will be nothing as Zionist regime by next 25 years. I remember this firstly. What else is he going to say? Okay. Yeah. Twitter again. Secondly, until then, struggling, heroic, and jihadi morale will leave no moment of serenity for Zionist. Yeah.
He also claimed that Israel was a cancerous tumor, must be eradicated.
On Twitter, by the way.
He also said America is the big Satan and Israel is the little Satan.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good
Luke,
indication.
but why don't you fill us in on what he feels now?
Right,
that
yeah,
was
'cause this week-
2015.
So
just
17th
this week.
of this month,
Yeah.
6 days ago,
Yeah.
he said they know. He
Again on
from
Twitter.
him
Luke, this is again on Twitter.
on
This
Twitter.
his feed.
He said they know Iran's nuclear program is peaceful, but they make absurd, senseless claims. Sorry, I can't do the accent like you.
They.
On how close Iran is to making a bomb. We seek peaceful use of nuclear energy. They know this, but they want the Iranian nation to face difficulties when it needs nuclear energy in the future.
Poor
I
pitiful
feel so sorry for you.
Ayatollah Khomeini.
Just remember this. Iran wants to destroy Israel, and they want to destroy America, and they want to destroy Western democracy, okay?
Right.
End of story, period. All
Even
you need
if
to
he
remember.
says something else on Twitter,
Not going to be good for Israel or America if they go back to the 2015 deal. Josh, I don't know why we have to keep talking about this, but this is the other headline that you will probably see in the news sometime this week because it's in Israeli news headlines. And if it's in Israeli news headlines, it'll be in international news headlines, right? And that is settler violence, okay? Israel's health minister keeps ranting. He's a leftist guy, okay? Keeps going on and on about settler violence and how it's a national problem now, and Israel has to crack down and figure out and on this rising increase in settler violence, okay? Guys, settler violence is not a thing. Go back and watch our previous shows, okay?
can we just say period exclamation point and that'd be it? It's not a
Isolated
thing.
instances of crime are dealt with like crime, okay, to the fullest extent of the law. It's not a problem. It's not hardly happening at all. And it's not settler violence. If there's an incident here 1 week and there's an incident there 3 weeks later, that's called crime, okay? But if you want to know what's happening on the other side of the story, like the 13-year-old terrorist who threw a firebomb at Israeli vehicles and got himself shot, got this information from Arlene Kushner, and the numbers come from Rescuers Without Borders. They document every instance of Arab violence against Jews in Judea and Samaria, and they have the evidence and the time and the location to back it up, okay? The month of January alone, 400 incidents of Arab attacks on Jews in Judea and Samaria. Those incidents are rock throwings, 300, tire burnings, 59, Molotov cocktails, those are those fire bombs I was telling you about, 89, bottles of paint thrown, blinding drivers with lasers, car ramming, setting fires, including a synagogue, attempted stabbings, roadblocks with rocks, car theft, fireworks, shooting attacks against soldiers next to major roadways and IDF bases and posts. Guys, that was January. Those things happened in January. 400 attacks. The numbers for 2021, 5,532 rock throwing attacks in Judea and Samaria in 2021. That's 38% increase from 2020, and then an increase even more from 2019. Guys, that's what's actually happening. But instead, the world chooses to believe the lie that there's such a thing as settler violence, including the United Nations, including some leftists in Israel's government, unfortunately.
Luke, I want to. America is like working along with the Iranians to allow an Iranian bomb to their detriment. I would just say that. They hate America, they hate Israel. We just talked about that. And then the leftist world is allowing and propagating the lie that the settlers are the problem. And they're siding with the hostile Arab neighbor that has an ideology that says kill all the Jews, just like the Iranians. The proxy is here. Yet the world is refusing to accept the fact that they should really bless the nation of Israel.
Because that's the key.
Because that's the
That's
key.
the key to your blessing.
That's right.
Josh, I think the conclusion is it's pretty simple. When you see all the anti-Israel headlines that are going to come out in your local or international news this week, don't believe them.
Hey, Luke.
Send all your friends to the Israel Guys YouTube channel. Send them to the Israel Guys daily podcast platforms. Subscribe, go to theisraelguys.com. Guys, it's all right there. You just have to open your eyes and see it, and you have to tell others, okay? Israel needs you more than ever.
Luke, one last thing is, remember this, guys. It's just epiphany this week. When people want to attack God, who do they attack?
God's people.
The Jews. That's a fact. It's historically proven. It's just there. I'll leave you with that.
Guys, Israel needs you more than ever in your home communities, your workplaces, your churches, your friends, your family, your communities. So stand up for what's right and send them to theisraelguys.com or on podcast platforms right here on YouTube to know what's really happening in the heartland of Israel. Make sure to tune out the fake news and tune into what is actually happening here in the heartland of Israel. Get the comments going down below. We want to hear from you and post those headlines that you find this week. We'll be back next week here at the Israel Guys.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. Go ahead and subscribe if you like that content. We can get it to you every week right there at your fingertips. If you really liked it and have questions, anything, we love comments. Go ahead and leave us a comment as well. If you'd like to even go further, your support would be greatly appreciated. We've got lots of content, lots of ideas that we want to keep pushing out there. If you want to support, you can go to our Patreon page or check us out at theisraelguys.com.